Have you ever felt like you've lost yourself in the noise of life? Like somewhere along the way, the person you were born to be got buried under expectations, doubts, and distractions. Today, I want to show you that the answer isn't out there. It's already inside you. All you need to do is listen. There is a voice within every human being that has existed long before words ever formed on their lips. It is not the voice of fear, doubt, or insecurity, but the voice of truth, calm, steady, and consistent. This voice is the echo of divine design, the whisper of purpose that resides deep within the spirit of every person. It does not compete with the noise of the world. It waits patiently to be acknowledged. From the moment you entered this world, that voice began to speak, guiding, nudging, reminding you of who you were meant to be. Yet as life unfolded, the noise of external expectations grew louder, and the inner voice became faint, almost forgotten. But it never disappeared. It is always there, calling you back to yourself. That inner voice carries the blueprint of your destiny. It knows where you are meant to go, what you are meant to become, and what you were designed to accomplish. It is connected to the source of all wisdom, which means it never misguides. It doesn't argue with circumstances, nor is it swayed by opinions. It is steady when everything around you shifts. It speaks in moments of stillness, when the heart is quiet and the mind is at peace. The challenge is that most people have become strangers to silence. The constant chatter of life has drowned out the ability to hear that gentle inner guidance. The more you listen to the world, the less you can hear yourself. The more you seek validation from others, the more disconnected you become from the truth already written inside you. The inner voice does not need to prove itself. It simply is. It carries a certainty that comes from divine origin. It is not the sound of ambition, ego, or emotion. It is the sound of essence. Every time you pause long enough to listen, you begin to realign with your purpose. You feel peace returning, not because everything around you has changed, but because you are remembering what was already within. This voice speaks through conviction, intuition, and moments of deep knowing that cannot be explained logically. It reminds you that your worth was never dependent on performance, and your identity was never tied to your failures or achievements. It calls you to rise above confusion and recognize the truth of your being. To hear it clearly, you must become still. Stillness is not absence of activity, it is the posture of awareness. When you silence the outer chaos, you give space for inner wisdom to rise. The more you honor that voice, the louder it becomes. The more you obey its direction, the more confident you become in its sound. Over time, you begin to live guided by insight instead of impulse, by conviction instead of comparison. Every great thinker, leader, and visionary learned to trust this inner sound, for they knew that destiny is never shouted, it is whispered. The voice within is your compass, your reminder, your connection to divine intention, quietly leading you back to who you already are. Life has a way of covering truth beneath layers of noise, distraction, and expectation. From the moment a person begins to grow, the world starts defining who they should be. Society gives names, titles, and labels that slowly replace the original design written within the soul. People begin to measure their worth by achievements, possessions, and approval. Every disappointment, every rejection, every harsh word adds another layer of confusion, making it harder to recognize the voice that once spoke clearly inside. The more one chases acceptance, the more one drifts away from authenticity. It is not that the true self disappears. It simply becomes buried beneath the opinions of others. As years go by, life's demands pull attention in 1,000 directions. The heart, once full of innocence and clarity, becomes crowded with noise. The voice of purpose, once vibrant, becomes faint. You begin to listen to what others say about you instead of what your spirit says to you. Failure begins to define you more than potential. Mistakes start shaping your identity instead of molding your character. You become a product of pressure rather than a reflection of purpose. Slowly, you start living by reaction instead of revelation, moving through life trying to please others while forgetting the one person you were meant to honor. Your true self, forgetting who you are, is not the result of weakness. It is the natural outcome of neglecting silence. When you stop listening to the inner voice, you begin to depend on external noise for direction. Culture starts to tell you what success looks like. The crowd tells you what's acceptable. Fear tells you what's possible. But none of them know the truth of your design. That truth was placed within you by divine intent, long before the opinions of others could touch it. Yet when you live disconnected from that truth, you start chasing shadows, trying to become what you were never meant to be. You work harder but feel emptier. You gain more but understand less. You achieve success but lose peace. Forgetting who you are leads to spiritual fatigue. You start feeling out of rhythm with life because you are living outside of alignment with your true identity. The symptoms show up in frustration, anxiety, and the constant search for meaning. Deep down, something inside keeps whispering that there must be more, not more possessions, but more purpose. That whisper is the sound of remembrance calling you back. It's not trying to shame you, it's trying to awaken you. It reminds you that you were never meant to live based on opinions but on conviction, never meant to be driven by comparison but by calling. Life may have made you forget, but it cannot erase what was divinely placed within you. When you begin to listen again, the fog of confusion begins to lift, and you rediscover the person you were always meant to be. The world teaches people to move faster, speak louder, and stay busy, convincing them that meaning and identity are found through constant activity. But true identity does not reveal itself in chaos. It unfolds in quietness. Silence is not emptiness, it is the atmosphere where truth is heard. When the noise of life fades, the voice within begins to rise. It is in moments of stillness that a person begins to feel the alignment of spirit, soul, and purpose. Many people avoid silence because it exposes what the noise has been covering. Yet silence is the only space where the heart can breathe and the mind can listen. It is in that sacred quiet that you rediscover who you are, not who the world told you to be. Stillness is not weakness, it is strength under control. The greatest clarity often comes when everything else stops demanding your attention. The reason many wander aimlessly through life is not because they lack ability, but because they lack silence. Their lives are filled with sounds of comparison, ambition, and fear. They have been trained to look outside for answers that were placed inside long ago. The soul knows who you are, but the noise around you keeps you distracted. Every time you pause to listen, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost in the chaos. In that quiet, you remember the sound of your own truth. True identity cannot be discovered through competition or imitation. It is not built through applause or achievement. It is revealed through reflection. When you become silent before life, the mirror of your spirit clears, and you begin to see what was always there. This is why great wisdom often flows from quiet souls. They do not speak to be heard. They speak because they have listened. They have learned that silence sharpens awareness. It allows you to hear not only what is said, but what is meant. It allows you to discern between truth and noise, purpose, and distraction. In silence, you are reminded that identity is not a destination, but a revelation. It is not something you create. It is something you uncover. Beneath the layers of expectation and fear lies a design that has never changed. Stillness simply gives you access to it. That is why peace is so powerful. It reconnects you to the original sound of your existence. In that peace, you begin to remember the promises, the dreams, the potential that were once clear but became hidden beneath the rush of life. To find who you truly are, you must learn to stop running long enough to hear yourself again. Stillness invites truth to speak. When you quiet the noise of the world, you give space for the voice within to be heard. That voice does not tell you who to become, it reminds you who you already are. Listening is not the absence of movement, but the alignment of direction. Many people misunderstand listening as passivity, believing it means doing nothing or waiting idly for life to change. But true listening is one of the most active forms of faith and awareness. It requires focus, humility, and surrender. It is the act of quieting your will long enough to understand divine intention. Listening does not slow you down, it positions you correctly. You may be running fast, but if you are running in the wrong direction, speed becomes meaningless. Listening ensures that your energy, effort, and decisions are all guided by clarity instead of confusion. When you learn to listen deeply, you move with purpose instead of pressure. Listening refines your actions. It filters out impulses born from fear and replaces them with insight born from peace. The noise of ambition tells you to act now, but the voice of wisdom teaches you to act right. Listening trains you to recognize the difference between what looks urgent and what is truly important. When you stop and listen, you begin to hear the rhythm of purpose. You start to understand when to move, when to pause, and when to wait. It is through listening that you align your heart with divine timing. And when timing is right, even small actions carry great power. Listening transforms ordinary moments into strategic movements. When a person fails to listen, they become reactionary, constantly responding to circumstances rather than leading through clarity. But when a person listens, they start living from the inside out instead of from the outside in. Listening tunes your spirit to divine frequency so you can interpret life accurately. Many mistakes, heartbreaks, and detours could be avoided if people would learn to pause and listen before acting. Listening invites wisdom into motion. It doesn't tell you to stop dreaming or stop working. It teaches you to channel your energy where it truly belongs. Listening also demands humility because it acknowledges that you don't have all the answers. It allows you to receive instruction beyond intellect. It opens the heart to revelation. In listening, you surrender control, trusting that the one who designed your purpose knows the right path to fulfill it. That surrender is not weakness, it's the gateway to true authority. Those who listen are not easily shaken because they operate from understanding, not assumption. In every season of life, listening realigns you with truth. It sharpens your discernment so you can separate divine direction from human distraction. It connects you to the flow of wisdom that keeps your spirit in harmony with purpose. When you cultivate the discipline of listening, you no longer waste energy chasing what was never meant for you. You learn to move when it's time, speak when it's needed, and act when it's right. Listening brings alignment, and alignment brings peace, power, and progress that no noise can produce. Every human being was created with a specific intention in mind. Nothing about your existence is random. The place you were born, the gifts within you, even the challenges you faced are all connected to a greater design. Long before you took your first breath, your life carried purpose. The Creator spoke destiny into your being and placed within you everything needed to fulfill it. You were designed with precision, with a plan that aligns perfectly with your potential. The world may see you as ordinary, but heaven sees you as intentional. Every detail of who you are, your personality, your voice, your instincts, your passions, was formed to serve a unique assignment that only you can complete. When you understand that you were created intentionally, it changes how you see yourself. You no longer live as a mistake trying to prove worth. You live as a masterpiece unfolding purpose. Intentional creation means you were not made to blend in, but to stand out according to design. It means that your identity is not an accident of biology or circumstance, but a reflection of divine strategy. The world might label you by your past, your career, or your status, but your true identity comes from the mind of the one who created you. Every person is a product of thought, not their own, but of divine imagination. You are the result of a divine idea expressed through human form. When you begin to see life this way, your struggles no longer appear meaningless. Every experience becomes part of a larger pattern that contributes to your becoming. The pain that once made you question your worth becomes the soil where your purpose grows. The moments that made you doubt yourself become lessons that strengthen your identity. Nothing in your journey is wasted when you understand that design is at work. Even detours are directions in disguise. Every event, whether joyful or painful, is shaping you for the fulfillment of what was already written within you. Being created with intention also means you carry responsibility. Purpose demands participation. You cannot simply exist. You must engage with what was placed inside you. The gifts within you are not random talents. They are tools assigned to your calling. When you neglect them, you delay destiny. When you develop them, you accelerate fulfillment. The more you align your actions with your design, the more peace you feel because you're moving in rhythm with your true nature. Purpose produces harmony, and harmony brings power. Understanding your intentional creation also silences comparison. When you know that you were designed differently, you stop measuring yourself against others. You recognize that uniqueness is not weakness, but evidence of divine thought. Every person is an original idea, and the world needs what you were specifically made to bring. You were not born to copy. You were born to contribute. Your existence is proof that there is still something in this world that only you can do. Disconnection from the inner voice is the beginning of confusion. When you lose touch with that quiet guidance within, the world rushes in to fill the silence with its own noise. Fear begins to speak louder than faith, and culture starts defining who you should be. The absence of inner connection leaves space for external influence to dominate your thoughts. You start measuring your worth through the opinions of others and making choices based on pressure rather than purpose. When that happens, clarity fades, and you find yourself chasing approval, possessions, and recognition, none of which can ever replace peace. The farther you drift from that inner voice, the more restless you become, because your spirit recognizes that something essential is missing. Disconnection doesn't happen overnight. It begins subtly, a compromise here, a distraction there, until the heart becomes numb to the sound of truth. The noise of the world is constant, social comparison, material pursuit, endless busyness, all designed to keep your attention outward. But the voice of purpose speaks inwardly, and when you are disconnected from it, life feels like motion without meaning. You can be surrounded by success yet feel empty inside. That emptiness is not failure, It is the soul's cry for reconnection. The inner voice is like a compass. When ignored, you lose direction. You may keep moving, but you no longer know why or where you are going. The danger of disconnection is that it creates dependence on everything external for validation. You begin to believe that fulfillment lies in the next achievement or the next compliment. But those things are temporary, and once they fade, you are left searching again. This cycle produces confusion because it builds identity on unstable ground. Every time the world shifts, your sense of self shifts with it. But when you reconnect to the inner voice, you return to stability. That voice is consistent. It doesn't change with trends or seasons. It reminds you of truth even when circumstances contradict it. Fear is one of the loudest substitutes for inner silence. It masquerades as logic and convinces you to settle for safety instead of stepping into purpose. It keeps you bound to what is familiar, even if it is unfulfilling. Disconnection gives fear permission to lead, and when fear leads, destiny is delayed. Culture reinforces this by glorifying speed and success while ignoring stillness and soul. The more you listen to the world, the more you forget your worth. The more you chase noise, the less you hear wisdom. Reconnection begins with awareness. The moment you recognize the absence of peace, you are already being invited back to your source. Silence becomes sacred again. In that space, the fog begins to lift and the heart remembers what the mind forgot. The voice within never stopped speaking. It was only waiting for you to listen again. Once you do, confusion gives way to clarity and the noise loses its power over who you are. Listening is not a passive act. It is the birthplace of revelation. Every great turning point in life begins when a person finally stops running long enough to listen. The world rewards action, movement, and noise, but true transformation is born in stillness. When you listen with intent, you create space for wisdom to speak. Listening is not simply hearing words, it is perceiving meaning, discerning truth, and recognizing direction. It is the act of opening your spirit to divine insight that cannot be accessed through intellect alone. Many people pray for change, but few pause long enough to hear the answer. Revelation often comes quietly, wrapped in silence, waiting to be received by those who are willing to listen. Every visionary, inventor, and reformer in history experienced a moment when listening gave birth to a new reality. They heard something others ignored, an idea, a conviction, a truth that came not from noise but from within. Listening tunes your heart to frequencies the natural ear cannot detect. It allows you to sense timing, strategy, and purpose before they manifest. When you listen deeply, you position yourself to receive insight that elevates your understanding above ordinary thought. It is in this posture that revelation flows freely, and revelation is what transforms confusion into clarity and potential into power. Revelation changes perception. It gives light to what was hidden and meaning to what seemed random. You begin to see life through a lens of purpose rather than chance. Listening prepares you for revelation by emptying your mind of clutter and aligning your heart with truth. It's like tuning an instrument. Until you are in harmony with the right frequency, you can't produce the right sound. The same applies to destiny. When you listen, you align yourself with the rhythm of divine purpose, and your actions begin to flow effortlessly in the direction of fulfillment. Revelation does not always come with thunder or lightning. Sometimes it comes as a whisper of understanding, a sudden awareness that shifts your perspective forever. That is why listening requires sensitivity. You must quiet the distractions around you to hear what is being said within you. Often, revelation speaks through conviction, that inner knowing that tells you when something is right or wrong, when to move and when to wait. The more you honor that sense, the stronger it becomes. Listening creates the condition for transformation. You cannot change what you do not understand, and you cannot understand what you refuse to hear. When you truly listen, revelation unfolds like a map, showing you where you are and where you must go. It exposes lies that held you back and reveals truths that set you free. Every revelation begins with a listener, and every listener who acts on revelation becomes a leader. The world may chase noise, but those who listen carefully shape the future with what they've heard in silence. When revelation enters the heart, it awakens direction, and with direction comes identity. Listening opens the door, revelation walks through it, and purpose begins to take form. Most people wander not because they lack ambition, but because they lack understanding of who they are and why they exist. Without revelation, life becomes a series of experiments, trying to fit into molds designed by others, chasing achievements that do not fulfill, wearing titles that do not reflect truth. But when revelation comes, it brings light to confusion. It restores a sense of meaning. You begin to realize that you were never meant to live by accident. You were crafted for assignment. Revelation is what bridges the gap between existence and purpose, between motion and meaning. Direction is not simply knowing where to go. It is knowing why you are going there. Revelation gives that clarity. It shows you which doors to close and which ones to walk through. It teaches you that not every opportunity is aligned with destiny. When you live with revelation, you stop reacting to life and start responding with wisdom. You move from confusion to confidence, because your steps are guided by insight rather than impulse. That's the power of direction. It stabilizes your emotions and focuses your energy. It gives peace in uncertainty and courage in challenge. Once you receive revelation, you no longer chase everything that glitters, because you recognize what truly belongs to you. Revelation also restores identity. When you know why you exist, you rediscover who you are. Confusion about purpose always produces confusion about identity. The moment revelation shines on your life, you start remembering what you were built for. You no longer need validation from the crowd because truth has confirmed your worth. Revelation reminds you that your value was established before performance, and your design was intentional long before doubt was born. The world may have told you what you are not, but revelation tells you what you are. It is the mirror that reflects your original image, not the one distorted by fear, failure, or comparison. As direction grows clearer, decisions become easier. You start saying no to distractions that once appealed to you. You recognize that peace is a sign of alignment, and restlessness is a signal of misdirection. Revelation trains your spirit to discern these signals so you can stay connected to your divine flow. The path may not always be smooth, but revelation gives strength to keep walking. Even when vision is tested, you no longer measure success by how much you have, but by how aligned you are. Identity anchored in revelation cannot be shaken by circumstances because it draws its confidence from understanding, not appearance. When revelation births direction and identity, a person begins to live with authority. They move with assurance because they know where they are going and who they are becoming. Such a person becomes unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because truth has made them unshakable. The greatness within you has never been lost. It has simply been hidden beneath layers of doubt, distraction, and neglect. From the moment you were created, the seeds of potential were planted inside you, and they have always existed, waiting for the right conditions to grow. Circumstances may have obscured them, and mistakes may have caused temporary setbacks, but the essence of who you are, your gifts, your strength, and your purpose cannot be erased. Greatness is not something you acquire, it is something you uncover. It is not dependent on recognition or approval, but on awareness and alignment with your original design. Many people fail to recognize their greatness because they look outside themselves for confirmation. They search in achievements, accolades, and comparisons, thinking that value comes from external measures. But true greatness was written into your being before the world began to speak its opinions. It resides in your character, your passions, your choices, and the unique combination of gifts you were given. Every experience you've endured, every challenge you've faced, was shaping that greatness, refining it, and preparing it to rise at the right time. The world may have overlooked you, but your potential was never overlooked by the one who created you. The problem is that people often allow fear and criticism to mask their vision of themselves. They hear you cannot, you are not enough, or this is impossible, and they start to believe it. These lies cover the truth of your capacity like a shadow, making it seem as though greatness has vanished. But like the sun behind clouds, your strength is still there, ready to shine when the clouds are lifted. To reclaim it, you must stop listening to the noise of limitation and begin listening to the voice of truth within you. That voice will always remind you of what you were created to do and who you were created to be. Reclaiming greatness requires remembering that it is not dependent on external circumstances. Life may try to convince you that time has passed, that opportunities are gone, or that others are ahead of you. None of this changes your intrinsic potential. The greatness inside you cannot be measured by comparisons, wealth, or social status. It is defined by your purpose and the alignment of your actions with that purpose. Every skill, every talent, and every insight you possess was designed to contribute to your calling. When you embrace this understanding, you stop chasing validation and start living authentically. Greatness is awakened through awareness and action. It emerges when you recognize that you were never ordinary, that limitations were never permanent, and that setbacks are temporary lessons rather than final verdicts. Once you reconnect with your true self, the dormant strength rises, and the gifts you thought were lost become tools to shape your destiny. The more you act in alignment with your purpose, the more visible your greatness becomes, not for recognition, but as a natural expression of who you truly are. The world may have tried to convince you otherwise, but the greatness within you has always been present, waiting for the moment you would remember and reclaim it. Listening is the bridge that reconnects you to your true self. When you take the time to quiet the noise around you and within you, you create space for the voice of truth to be heard. That voice is not loud or demanding. It is steady, persistent, and deeply rooted in your essence. It reminds you of the person you were created to be before life's trials, expectations, and distractions clouded your vision. Remembering who you are is not about discovering something new. It is about reclaiming what has always been within you. Your identity, your gifts, and your purpose were never lost. They were simply waiting for you to listen again. Most people live disconnected from themselves because they fail to pause and hear the inner voice. They chase accomplishments, approval, and possessions, thinking that fulfillment lies outside of them. But external achievements cannot confirm who you are. True identity comes from within. The more you allow the world to define you, the more you forget yourself. Disconnection creates doubt, confusion, and restlessness because your spirit recognizes that something essential is missing. Listening is the antidote. That emptiness, it reconnects you to the truth that your value is inherent, your purpose is real, and your life is intentional. Listening requires discipline and courage. It means turning away from distractions, resisting the urge to constantly act, and giving your attention to the quiet guidance within. That guidance is the compass to your destiny. It does not shout. It whispers, nudges, and reminds you of your design. The more you practice listening, the clearer that voice becomes. Over time, you start to recognize patterns, convictions, and instincts that align perfectly with your calling. The inner voice begins to speak not just in abstract ideas, but in actionable direction, revealing the path that is uniquely yours. Remembering who you are also requires trust. The voice inside knows more than your experiences, more than the opinions of others, and more than the fears that hold you back. When you choose to follow it, you step into alignment with your original design. You stop trying to fit molds created by society or comparisons, and instead embrace the blueprint that was intentionally written for you. Listening allows you to distinguish between temporary desires and lasting purpose, between superficial approval and authentic fulfillment. When you listen intentionally, the layers of doubt and confusion begin to peel away. You reconnect with your gifts, your strengths, and your passions. You recall the dreams and visions that once stirred your heart but were buried under the noise of life. Your true self rises from beneath the shadows of expectation, criticism, and fear. This process of remembering is transformative. It restores confidence, ignites purpose, and strengthens resilience. It reminds you that you are not an accident, that your life carries meaning, and that your presence in this world is intentional. The act of listening is more than a habit. It is a pathway to remembering and reclaiming your identity. It allows you to hear the voice that never left, the voice that has always known your worth and destiny. Once you reconnect with that voice, everything changes. You no longer wander aimlessly. You no longer live defined by others, and you no longer doubt your capacity. You step into the fullness of who you really are, awakening the strength, wisdom, and greatness that has been waiting inside you all along. The voice within has never left you. When you stop, listen, and reconnect, you don't discover who you are. You remember. And in that remembrance, you reclaim your purpose, your strength, and your true self.